Now, we're going to talk about the case of Christopher Tapp. And buckle up, because it is also a case of police corruption. I didn't realize this is the theme tonight. But yeah, it totally is. And then next, I'll be talking about Delphi. Go figure. I mean, that's whole judicial system corruption, in my opinion. But anyway, Christopher Tapp was kind of the poster boy for the Innocence Project in Idaho, because he was exonerated after being accused of murdering and sexually assaulting a woman. And honestly, it kind of feels like he was just straight up framed. Like, I think he was just straight up framed. I mean, nobody ever says that, but he was coerced and pretty much forced into confessing to this crime. And there was never a single piece of evidence that connected him to the crime scene, ever. They even found exonerating evidence and explained it away. So, I say framed. I mean, come on. So, let's go into the case a little bit and talk about it. And then we'll talk about the fact that, unfortunately, Christopher Tapp has died. And it's suspicious. So, this crime took place on June 13th, 1996, and the victim was Angie Dodge. She was sexually assaulted and stabbed to death in her apartment in Idaho Falls. She was just 18 years old. And her body was found when she didn't show up for work. So the police department started investigating, but the summer and fall went, so they're basically a whole year later and there's no arrest. That changed in 1997, the next year, after a man named Benjamin Hobbs was arrested in Ely, Nevada, and charged with SA. After learning about the arrest, the police decided in Idaho Falls to interview him and try to build a case against him, and also interview his friends. One of his friends was 20-year-old Christopher Tapp.
Okay.
So, both of them, he and Dodge, okay, so the woman too, all of them were so-called river rats. They all hung out around Snake River. I actually watched an interview with Christopher Tapp after he was exonerated, and he was talking about this and explaining all of it. And it wasn't very far from this girl's apartment, I guess. But they were all just a bunch of little punk kids hanging around the river, and yeah, so they had been seen with that girl the night before at a gathering by the river. So the night before she died, they had seen her.
Okay.
Tapp was first interviewed by the police January 7th of 1997. And then he was released. Then he was interviewed again January 10th. And then with him the following day. Okay, then they interviewed him again the 11th. So 7th, 10th, and 11th. He didn't show. So by then, they had scheduled this. Okay, I got that messed up. So 7th and 10th, then they scheduled it for the next day, the 11th. But his parents got an attorney for him. And I don't know why he made this decision, but the parents are talking about getting an attorney for him, and he doesn't show up to the interview because he's waiting for his attorney, which probably wasn't a smart decision. So the police show up to the door, knocking on the door, and talk to his mom. And she's like, he's not coming in for questioning because we're getting an attorney. And they decide to go get an arrest warrant. Yeah.
That drives me crazy with police, man.
They charged him with an accessory to a felony.
What?
And arrested him.
Okay.
So in the very first interview, he said that him and his friend Hobbs had nothing to do with the crime, and he knew nothing about it at all. Then the next interview on January 10th, he said that Hobbs killed Dodge, the woman, and asked him to give them an alibi. On January 15th, his story changed again. He said he'd been with Hobbs when Hobbs killed Dodge. He said Hobbs was angry at the girl for trying to break up his marriage. During most of these interviews, a video recorder was running. In addition, Tapp's attorney watched on a monitor from a separate room. One of the officers who questioned Tapp was Jared Furman, who had been a school resource officer and was seen as somebody Christopher Tapp trusted. And he also talked about that in that interview, that he had many experiences with this school officer and many good experiences. So he naturally just trusted him a lot and looked at him like, you're going to help me.
Okay.
Which is kind of like Dr. Moore. That's what happened to Dr. Moore. Somebody that their kids went to like stuff, with, like, because they both had kids, that one officer, wasn't it the chief or something?
Yep.
But it was a similar thing. So January 15th and 17th, Tapp got an immunity agreement with the police under the conditions he would give them truthful information about the crime, and that he would only be charged with and allowed to plead guilty to aiding and abetting an aggravated battery. So they're like, you tell us everything about this crime and we'll only charge you with aiding and abetting an aggravated battery, and you have to plead guilty to it. Which is kind of crazy. So
it is crazy because it makes me wonder.
Can they force you to agree to plead guilty?
No, but it can be a plea agreement.
Yeah.
But to me, and the lawyer was involved in that.
Yeah, the lawyer literally watched these interviews, not inside the room. He was outside the room, like through the glass, watching them. And watched some of these interviews. Like, he had clearly ineffective counsel.
Yeah, it feels like it.
So Tapp was then interviewed on January 18th, but now there was a problem. They had found DNA inside of her, okay? And the test came back and excluded Tapp and Hobbs. It was not Christopher Tapp's DNA, and it was not his friend Hobbs' DNA.
Okay.
So then the police offered a solution to that, in that, you have this friend named Jerry Sargis who was also there. So then Tapp changed his story again and said now that Hobbs and Sargis sexually assaulted and killed Dodge. Then on January 27th, the DNA tests come back on Sargis, the other friend. They're also negative. Sargis was not there. And his alibi checked out. So prosecutors were angry and they voided Tapp's immunity agreement. They take it away.
That is shady.
Because he keeps lying, because he's trying to give them their story. Every time they come up with a new idea and he's got this immunity agreement, he's going along with it because he doesn't know what happened because he wasn't involved.
Yeah.
He's just trying to give them what they want.
I get that. But the flaw started with the police.
Exactly.
Leaning on him in a way that was unfair and against his civil rights.
Exactly. So
the lying isn't even what's important. Of course he's lying. He's terrified and scared,
and he's
having
a young guy.
A murder held over his head. What? Of course.
Right. Exactly. So by January, so that was January 29th when they took away his plea agreement or whatever. So also that day, they took Christopher Tapp to the crime scene and his lawyer did not come. His lawyer literally declined to come.
What?
They asked his lawyer to come and he was like, nah, I don't want to go.
Oh my gosh.
So he's taken to the crime scene. His attorney says no. He changes his story again and now says that he held Dodge down during the sexual assault and stabbing, and that Hobbs was still there, but Sargis left. and wasn't there anymore, and replaced by a friend of Hobbs named Mike, who Tapp didn't know. On January 30th, he took a 5th polygraph test. So, whoa. By then, he had taken 5. Whoa. During the questioning, police told him he could possibly get a lenient sentence if he had been in fear of his life witnessing the attack. So they're leading him into confessing these things.
Yep.
Eventually, Tapp said he cut.
Technique.
And guys, this is coming right off the Innocence Project. Eventually he claims that he cut Dodge across the chest, joining the assault because Hobbs threatened to kill him. The police officer told him he passed the test, but would note on the report that Tapp was deceptive in his answer about participating in the crime. Well, duh. Because he didn't do it.
Yeah, because he wasn't there.
Right.
Yeah.
On February 3rd, Tapp was charged with first-degree murder and sexual assault and the use of a deadly weapon in commission of a felony, which was a sentencing enhancement. Hobbs, although convicted of the Nevada assault, was never charged. Sargis was initially charged an accessory, but then those charges were dismissed. Tapp's trial in district court for Idaho 7th Judicial District began May 12, 1998. His attorney tried to unsuccessfully suppress his confession. And he wouldn't. The judge wouldn't. It was Judge Ted V. Wood said the vast majority of Tapp's statements to the police could be used against him. His lawyer tried to argue they were coerced, that he was coerced and to suppress him. But the judge was like, no.
He was coerced, obviously.
Like, dude, if the judge watched any of those tapes, it would have been obvious. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
So apparently the confession tapes took up most of the trial because they didn't have any real evidence. It's so stupid. Basically, he was just scared, man. He was just scared. So they also tried to claim that he knew what Dodge was wearing before they showed him the crime scene photos. But when they went back to watch the videotapes that were literally shown in court, that he didn't know what she was wearing until after they told him during the polygraph test.
Oh my gosh.
They literally proved it with those tapes. So they also introduced a witness of a testimony of a young woman named Destiny Osborne. She said she was at a party a few days after Dodge was killed, and she overheard Tapp and Hobbs talking about the crime. She said she was high on drugs at the party and heard Hobbs say that he did kill her. Tapp did not testify, but witnesses provided an alibi. So DNA didn't match, and he had an alibi that had a witness. Right? So they said that Tapp had spent...
insane.
I know. They said Tapp spent the night with a woman, and the date was clear because Tapp's girlfriend had caught them the next morning. So he was literally cheating on his girlfriend that night. Not assaulting this woman. Right? So, but prosecutors presented other witnesses in Tapp's circle of acquaintances who said he had the dates wrong. How many people did they coerce to convict this one man?
Right.
Like, because you have that one random girl who's at a party with him on drugs, and then other people in his circle of friends. Like, it sounds like you fed them all stories.
It feels like a lot of work to create a false narrative.
Yeah. So the jury of 9 women and 3 men convicted him on all charges May 28th, 1998. He was sentenced to later that year to life in prison with a minimum sentence of 30 years for the murder conviction and 10 years for the sexual assault conviction.
Okay. So
then there's a huge appeal process, obviously, and eventually he gets exonerated.
How? Okay, what I'm not understanding is, look, through what we've been talking about tonight, I've seen a couple situations already where you have police officers offered up as experts when they shouldn't be. They are experts in policing They didn't go to school for these other sciences. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So in this situation, like, I have such a hard time with our justice system. And this is why I say, and I've said before, salesmen run the world, because I'm telling you, the prosecutors and attorneys that win are the ones that can grandstand the best and build an emotional connection with people, which comes from words, not from objective evidence. And that's why our court system is subjective, not objective. But how on earth do they find jury members to convict in a case so weak?
You got me, man. Something's up with that.
That's
Nothing ever connected him to this crime scene.
That's why I wanted to do the video so badly that we did last week on the differences between facts, truth, hypothesis, theories, laws, because I don't think people generally know the differences. You think that if you're wearing a badge that everything coming out of your mouth is not just fact, but actual truth. Not all facts are true, but all truths are facts. Remember, because facts are subjective to that person's point of view. That doesn't make them true.
And the truth is objective.
Yeah. Well, ultimate truths are always facts from everyone's perception.
Right.
But facts are only a fact to the person who is claiming them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
insane.
I don't understand how they can exclude him with DNA and have literally not a single thing connecting him to this crime scene. Everybody else gets dismissed of the charges who apparently was involved in all these confessions, and he is the singular one to get convicted with literally no evidence but a bunch of confession tapes. That's it. That's all they had. Confession tapes and witness testimony. That's it. And I agree with you. I don't think police officers, honestly, at this point in time, I don't know if police officers should ever be called to the stand.
Not as expert witnesses.
No, literally for any reason. Because if they're always wearing a body cam, why do we even need their subjective view on it?
Yeah.
Why not just watch their body cams?
We need them to be expert police officers.
Yeah.
Not expert at landing cases.
Right. Their job is to only protect the public, serve the public, collect evidence when they have to, and then a prosecutor builds the case. Actual investigators like detectives build cases. Prosecutors assist in building those cases.
I agree.
They have too much power in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
So anyway, basically, they found hair on Dodge's body. And in addition to the other DNA that was found, and the Innocence Project actually kept pushing for this DNA to get tested. They got on board in 2007. So he had already been serving like a lot of time, almost a decade. And they started pushing for this DNA to get tested. And eventually they got it. They went through IGG and found out who actually committed this crime. It got solved.
Who was it?
I'm trying to remember the name.
It's not that important. What's important is the case leading up to.
It should be here somewhere. I can't remember.
He was the first person in the world to be
proven. That's important to mention. He was the first person in the whole world to get exonerated with IGG. And it's in Idaho. Go figure. Like, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Isn't that super weird?
It is strange.
So Brian Drips. He lived across the street from Dodge, the girl, and had been questioned by the police early in the investigation before they started focusing on Hobbs and Christopher Tapp. He actually lived in Caldwell on the other side of the state in Idaho. They surveilled him, waiting for him to leave a DNA sample. Eventually recovered a cigarette butt, compared it with his DNA, and they brought him in for questioning. He confessed and was arrested on May 15th, 2019. Yeah. And then on July 17th, 2019, Tapp's murder conviction was vacated. So he had been let out already, I think. I'm pretty sure. And then later on, it was fully vacated. But now to move on to his death. So the Innocence Project posted this on 11/8/23, November 8th, 2023. And they said they're deeply saddened to share the news that Christopher Tapp, 47, died in Las Vegas on November 5th after an accidental fall on October 29th caused serious and irreversible head injuries. He was rushed to the hospital where, after a week of heroic efforts to save him, he died. He's survived by his mother, Vera, who stood by him the whole time during his trials and all of that. She literally took out a second mortgage to pay for his appeals and all of that. Worked second job, like literally carried him through all of that financially.
Yeah.
But he was officially exonerated in 2019. Yeah. That's why he was a poster boy. He was the first one exonerated by IGG. That's absolutely incredible. But then we have an article from East Idaho News, just published January 10th of this year, 2024, that his death is being investigated as a homicide.
Really? Wow.
By the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. He served 20 years in prison, man. He lost out so much in life and then literally barely gets any time out. Like, you know, like exonerated and dies, is murdered possibly. And he ended up filing a lawsuit, of course, against Idaho Falls Police. I don't know. I think they probably settled. I don't remember how that ended. I didn't have an article here with that. But this talks about kind of the situation, though we don't know much yet. So medical personnel are called to a hotel on the 3000 block. Is that how you say that?
Yep.
300th?
3000.
Okay. Block of South Las Vegas Boulevard on October 29th, where he said he had suffered head injuries from an accident. Then a month later, on November 22nd, the Las Vegas Metro Homicide Section began investigating his suspicious death. What? Through the course of the suspicious death investigation, LVMPD homicide detectives have learned that Tapp was in an altercation inside a room at the resort before being located and transported to the hospital. Tapp's death has been ruled as a homicide because of the blunt force trauma to his head.
Wild. What a hard life. Jeez.
I actually watched a documentary where somebody went into the prison with him and showed his life there too. At no point in any of the footage I've seen of him, did he ever seem like a violent or aggressive man. He seems so demure, like just so calm. Just his whole vibe is calm.
Yeah.
At no point does he it makes me want to see all of his confession tapes because I wonder how he reacted in that situation. He's so laid back and so just non-aggressive that I feel like they just steamrolled the crap out of him and scared him to the point where he's like, I'll tell you whatever you want to hear.
Yeah.
Just
Which is
please let me go
exactly
home.
the connection that I've been trying to make with what we see with an over aggressive police force. Yes.
They literally didn't have a single piece of evidence against him.
I know. And it's scary. And we see this time and time again. It's insane.
Oh, here. He was awarded $11.7 million in 2022 after suing the city of Idaho Falls for the wrongful conviction. And his mother, Vera Tapp, received an apology letter from Mayor Rebecca Casper and a promise that the city would do better moving forward. They ask anybody with information about Christopher Tapp's death, contact Las Vegas Metro Police at 702-828-3521 or by email homicide@lvmpd.com. You can remain anonymous by contacting Crime Stoppers, which is Crime Stoppers of NV, Nevada, NV.com, or 702-385-5555. I am really curious how this is going to turn out. I like the lawsuit settled. So what's the motive here? Did he get in some trouble in Las Vegas? Like what is it?
I don't know.
Is there some kind of retribution, vendetta? Like, I'm really curious, but it's really super tragic. He didn't really get to live that much life as an adult outside of prison.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very sad. But let me know what you think. If you have any theories on this case, if you have any specific parts of this case, because this was suggested by a viewer, Pebbles. She asked me to look into it, but if there's any certain aspects of this that you would like me to dive deeper into, please let me know and leave your opinions in the comments.
Yes, let us know.